All right. It is 5:01. I'd like to call the August 14th, 2025 meeting of the City of Charleston Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission to order. I want to note the presence of Commissioner Fry, Fish, Commissioner Simon, Commissioner Cleveland, Commissioner Johnson, and myself, uh, indicating that we have a quorum, and we're expecting co-chair um, Bowden to shortly, as well as Carol Jackson. Um, I'd like to begin the meeting in our customary moment of silence. Um, there is much going on in the world. We note with sadness the passing of Reverend Darby, a particularly important individual in this community, addressing the issues, uh, someone who spoke truth to power, but forced us to deal with sometimes uncomfortable situations. He will be dearly missed, and we're challenged uh, as a community to fill in the gaps for the things that he did to bring us together as a community. Um, a moment of silence in honor of him, uh, and also contemplating us taking on the challenges, personal, community, and world confronting us consistent with our mission. Thank you. Uh, the I want to note for the agenda, uh, we've listed a presentation from Dr. Felice Knight, uh, who unfortunately is taken ill, so she will not be presenting today. She'll be coming rescheduled in the future. Uh, so the agenda will be adjusted for that presentation not being made tonight. Um, Public comment period. Do you have anyone sign up? Jasmine? Uh, Are there individuals from the public who'd like to address the body? No, Harlan. Okay. Please come to the mic, indicate your name. No, Harlan's going to talk later. No. Oh, no mic. Okay.
Thank you. Anna Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston, and I'm joined this evening with another fellow member of our Protect and Respect the Bodies Coalition. And we have spoken before this commission, as well as the Commission on History, on the topic of the burial ground at 106 Cumming Street that was formerly owned by the City of Charleston. There was a public meeting hosted by the College of Charleston last Monday, August 4th, that if you were not able to be in attendance was very well attended and really spoke to the grave level of concern that community members have with the future of this site and their desire to be involved in visioning for its future and for the protection of those who are laid to rest there. The meeting is actually was recorded and is available to watch back online. I would highly encourage members of this commission to do so. And we were also really encouraged that at the Commission on History meeting that took place on the Wednesday after that meeting, there was a resolution that was determined by that commission, and Chairman Harlan Green is here and can speak to it as well, that the commission and HARC would be able to partner on advocacy efforts on the city's behalf, on efforts to determine what the city's role could and should be in determining how steps are taken to ensure protection of those who are laid to rest at 106 Cumming Street. We are highly encouraged by that partnership and that notion. We encourage you to take that into consideration this evening and determine next steps for how the Commission on History and HART can partner in that effort. So I can pass it to my colleague James to speak further, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Jonjo. I did attend the meeting on Monday, August 4th. It was a lot of people. And then I watched the historical commission's thing on YouTube. I watched it live, and it was great to see a lot of people spoke. A lot of people advocated on behalf of the community. Um, like Captain said, it was a municipal cemetery. I think it's important to consider what the city's role might be in this, how the city can advise what provisions should be made. And I think that it would be important for Park and Historical Commission to really study the history, study the project, and make recommendations. Thank you.
Right, thank you. We're going to, during my comments, I'll raise some of the discussion on the Cummings Street Commons project and invite Chairman Green to join that in that discussion. Not at this point, let's because I think there'll be a lot of discussion, so we'll make certain we get through that. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our July meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additions or deletions, corrections?
We mentioned earlier, Dr. Millicent Brown's name is misspelled, but other than that,
Okay. Other commissioners with corrections? I note also in the last paragraph of public comment, at the comment indicating the co-chair said the project would begin construction in 2028. I was talking about the timeline. It said, correcting that should read, would complete construction in the fall of 2028. The current timeline calls for the phase one to be completed in the fall of 2028. Also, I think, yep. So on the minutes as submitted, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
With correct.
With correct. Opposed? Abstention? So ordered. Want to note that the notes submitted as minutes ended at 5:40. There was discussion following that. My understanding of Robert's Rules of Order, if there was a motion put forward on the floor for some action and a member challenged whether or not there was a quorum, it would be at that point an action would need to be taken to cease the meeting. Is my understanding that the practice of the clerk's office is if there is a loss of a quorum, at that point they stop taking notes. So that's why the minutes end at that point. I urge you to, you and the public, for that matter, to take a look at the last 25 or 30 minutes of that meeting. Amongst the things that were talked about was the manager's report, particular identification of information around the youth initiatives, the meeting convened by co-chair Bowden, and some recommendations he made specifically in terms of additional youth activities that might be considered. Was mentioned, reaffirmed that the HARC ordinance would be before the Community Development Committee again in September. And there was discussion led by Bob of linking in response to what we had heard from community members regarding the construction project, the dorm construction project, to liaison with the History Commission. Also discussing raising again the status of the Black Wall Street plaques, and Commissioner Orth suggested that we revisit the unhoused issue in September or October. Just wanted, again, to get the full flavor of those discussions, I suggest that you go back and listen to the tapes. Okay. Chairperson's comments. Stephen, you have any you'd like to make at this time? Or you want to wait?
It's been a day, so I'll wait. Yeah, take up what you feel like you need to
Okay,
do, and we'll
great.
come back to it.
Okay, wonderful. So, as already mentioned, a lot of, at our last meeting, there was announcement of the College of Charleston's meeting, scheduled for August 4th. Information coming forward, from the Preservation Society and other organizations regarding the city's legal, responsibilities. I think I shared that memo, with the commissioners. And at, as was indicated at the History Commission's meeting, I made observation of our interest in working jointly with the commission, and the commission, in fact, debate and passed a resolution that we work jointly in terms of advising the mayor and the council around this issue. I've invited the commission chair, Harlan Green, to be with us. And Harlan, join us. Why don't you join us here? Let you sit down.
But if I could just jump in, yeah, I think it's fine to talk about this, and I think we should, given it's sort of time sensitive. Let's just be careful about taking any action, because it's not spelled on the agenda, aside from like potentially scheduling a meeting with some of us. That's doesn't amount to a quorum of anybody.
Our interest here is to figure out what information get us up to speed.
100%.
And figure out how the two bodies might work together if there's something to work on.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you all for allowing me to be here. And this is basically for information only. I'll maybe spend a little bit of time talking about what the Historical Commission does. The city brought the commission into being in the 1940s with the legislation basically saying, one, that we could remark on signage, et cetera, too, but the language is large enough to say, you know, that the city does have historical assets, and the Historical Commission can advise the city on those protections of those assets. So while we do spend the majority of our time on plaques that are put up on public places in the city of Charleston, we do and have often touched upon issues that I think that are near to the heart of this commission as well, too. You know, witness the putting up the historical marker on Denmark Vesey, putting up all the signage that will come in Maryville, and a variety of things like that. So at our commission meeting, we did bring up this issue of the burial ground at 106 Cumming Street. And with the great presentations that were done by the Preservation Society at that Monday meeting and on our Wednesday meeting as well, our commissioners took up that issue, feeling that it was within our purview to advise City Council on issues. We had advised the City Council on perhaps interpreting the Calhoun statute 2 or 3 years before it had been taken down. And, you know, we did that in advisory capacity. Our advice was not followed. But to make a long story short, what we did decide at that meeting, thanks for Jerome being there, is that we did realize that we did have common ground to share. And so then the only resolution that we passed was, again, realizing that it was very early in the in the movement forward with not all the facts present, although I do think a good historical report has now been put online, I think via the Preservation Society, of all the historical issues there on that ground, that we just basically passed a very general resolution that we would like to study the issue more, that we do see ourselves in an advisory capacity to the city, and we would like to work with your commission, to help either craft language together or at least to see how our two missions overlap.
You passed comment about the historic study that was done by the college. You want to share a little bit of information, because I think it just became available recently.
Right. So it was done by, I guess, Brittany Lavelle Tula and her and her team. it is a very thorough study, basically showing not just the title search of the property, but interpreting the likelihood of particular types of people who are buried there as well. She makes, I think, a very strong argument that when the slave trade was cut off until 1803 and then brought again in 1808, and then many of the ships arrived at Gadsden's Wharf, that's when the cemetery seemed to really fill up with the information that she had, talking about deaths in the city of Charleston. While there were not great demographics, it was very clear in her report that that what people have been suggesting, that yes, they were segregated areas for white people and for denizens of the orphan house. There were certainly areas that were buried as well for free people of color and also arriving Africans from the continent. So it's a very full report. And again, while she does actually infer a few names of some of the people, like some of the orphans that might have been inferred that put in there. So there could be a search for descendants, but I thought her argument was particularly strong about the nature of people buried there, the demographics, if not the individual identities.
The report is quite detailed and interesting. It is, I believe, as Adrian provided on the Commons Street website by the college, and as well as on the Preservation Society's website. So if you have nothing else to do tonight, you might want to go ahead and read it, let it roll back in your eyes a little bit. Harlan, what are your thoughts about how we proceed to work together?
I would defer to y'all. I think, to be frank, our commission often has trouble making a quorum, although we have met with the mayor recently to try to reinvigorate the commission and to bring on new blood. And the mayor will be meeting with us in October. So, as information is made available and as we interpret the statute of our own organization and what we can do for the city, I'm assuming that we could make separate resolutions and then possibly we could make joint resolutions as well. And to me, that would possibly carry more weight if it is, if each commission does something and then we do something joint, stronger together.
Questions for the commissioners?
Just listening to you, thank you, Chairman Green, and I appreciated being at the College of Charleston's public engagement evening and hearing your comments personally at that point, and then reading the 22-page report that you all forwarded to us from the Preservation Society. So I'm just jumping off from what you were saying about individual commission recommendations and then a joint one. What time frame do you think we need to be aiming for in terms, because my understanding from the college's game plan is that they're going to break ground in November, I think, was the last that they told us.
They're going to start demolition in October.
October now?
They're going to start demolition of the Y building in October.
Oh, demolition, but not actually digging until November. Anyway, I'm asking, what should we be aiming for, because it's August.
Right. I mean, I feel, and hopefully my commissioners will feel the same way, with the release of that report, I do think we were hamstrung at our meeting, which I think, again, was like the 6th or something like that, a week ago Wednesday, that many had attended the public forum, many had not. There were just brief presentations by the city and by the Preservation Society and by the public. So it was my thought that the Historical Commission members, many of them did not feel that they were up to speed on the report that has subsequently come out. So it is my hope that, I will be out of town in September. I tell my commission that we usually meet on the first Wednesday in September. I told them that I would be very happy for someone else to chair the commission. They have politely declined. So I do believe it will be in the first Wednesday in October. And it's my thought that with that amount of information now, knowing securely that there are types of people there, that possibly we could make a general resolution that I would assuming, and I'm not one of putting words in my member's mouth, that, based on our powers and the language of what the city can do is to protect assets and that sort of thing, that we would make some kind of statement that, and I'm guessing now, and again, certainly as you understand how the commission works and your committee works too, is that, basically encouraging the city to use its power to fully vet this project, to take into the consideration, as the language you have here, what the public's concern are for this. But I think we would aim our resolution at what we feel the city itself can do, since we are a city, as y'all are a city commission, and, and aim at just saying what we believe the city should do with its powers and responsibilities.
So then October,
Yes.
because our meeting is the week after yours. So you would come back in October and
Right. And
encourage us
possibly
to
again
do-
on our agenda as well, we could have representation at that one. So again, we could cross-fertilize since we seem to be a week apart, which is helpful.
And if we publicize it in advance, then we can take an action, right?
Right. I think it's my understanding of Robert's Rules of Order, if it's on the agenda, that we can make it so that it can be an action item.
Observations?
And we could talk about this more afterwards, but I was just curious, and I was talking to Jerry before the meeting about this. When did it enter like the contemporary record that this property had 4,000 people interred there? And in the past, have there been similar discoveries in recent years, and how were they dealt with?
If I can answer that, just being a librarian and knowing the person that authored, in about the late 1999 or so, or about 2000, a very thorough publication of all the graveyards in the city of Charleston by a group by the Shakora Foundation, main author Michael Trinkley, a book called The Silence of the Dead. It's about 150-page book that lists all the known cemeteries in the city of Charleston, deed abstracts, estimating that thing. So I know publicly by then, that in the early 2000s, checking the publication date, so a good 20 years or so ago or before, that was publicly available. I do know that historians themselves knew, those of us in the history field were quite aware that there was there. Charles Frazier publishes his reminiscences in the 1850s, and he makes a veiled reference to possibly that being the public burial ground and even public hanging area in the city of Charleston at that time. So I would say the general public had the idea to know it, anyone, in publications around the year 2000, but it was certainly known by historians for a generation, if not before. And if I could say, I thought Angela Mack at our commission, when she was questioning people at the college, really made some pointed remarks. She asked the college, she compared, and there were people there at that meeting from the Anson Street Burial Project. And I thought Angela made very good points about that, no one knew that the Anson Street burial was there. When the city discovered that it was there, all construction stopped, DNA analysis started immediately, worked with the public, and the public seemed to be very happy with how the city moved forward. And then she brought forward, which I thought was a pointed question, when she asked the people at the College of Charleston, so you knew that there was a cemetery there? And they did acknowledge that, yes, they bought the property in full knowledge, knowing that there was a cemetery there.
So the city owned this property between the college and Y, right?
Right. The city owned the property until only about 1813 or something like that, or 1817. It was a municipal property, and then it eventually sold it off, and it was developed over time. So the city ceased having responsibility for that property in 1817. And as this report and as Brittany's report notes as well too, there were that public cemetery filled up. There had been an earlier public cemetery. The city moved to other spaces under MUSC, under Johnson Hagan Stadium. But so the city did not started selling the property about 1817.
But they didn't, so the Y sold it directly to the college though.
No, apparently, and again, I will defer to the gentleman there who had incredible information on the day of the public meeting. And I'll try to summarize up that apparently the YWCA property went on sale in the early 2000s. From what I understand, the college bid on it, did not get it. And then the owner of that property subsequently sold it to the college about 10 years or so later for a significantly larger amount of money without having improved the property. And that same LLC, one person, and I'm paraphrasing the gentleman there, also owned the other property, which is on the corner of Vandross and St. Philip, which abuts the property. So the college owns a much larger property that does not cover part of the cemetery, but their building will be on a good percentage of the cemetery. And I can't recommend enough Brittany's report visually showing where the cemetery was and what the college property is and where the dorm most likely will sit.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Since we're here and you seem to be very knowledgeable about this, at the time that, this property ceased being a cemetery, I guess, filled up, as you said, and was sold to somebody else. How quickly after that was something built on there?
So as I think of brilliant story, by the mid 19th century, it was cut up into parcels and buildings were built upon it. Maybe people of the day not having the sensitivities that we do now. So there were, and I think 106, so maybe it's 108 Calhoun, which is the building just north of what was the YWCA, is the sole remaining, I think, mid 19th century building that was on that site that is still there. Apparently, since the southern half of it is a parking lot, there was an inference in her report that maybe the soil has not been disturbed as much as as likely.
Okay. And just as a follow-up to that, would it have been a common practice at that time to, use a piece of land as a cemetery, fill it up and then sell it off and build on top of it? And would that have happened regardless of whether it was, very wealthy people interred there or poor people?
And again, not,
Or favored?
it seems to be that it's only the public burial grounds that have been, Robert Mills Manor is built on what was probably the city's earliest public burial ground. And again, it was Potter's Field sort of thing, individual churches. And, they're called strangers' burial grounds, ultimately because stranger being the term visitor, people that, seamen and that sort of thing, people who did not have a family to take care of, people who were passing through the city and died at the same time, and then paupers themselves who, at that point, you often had to pay money to be member of St. Michael's or St. Philip's or something like that. So you didn't necessarily have burial privileges there. So the city, historically said the Robert Mills Manor, then the one on Cumming Street, MUSC is now built on what was the next Potter's Field, Johnson Hagan Stadium, and Harmon Field is built on what was the next public cemetery, not closed until the 20th century. In the 1920s and 30s, many private cemeteries were lost as the city of Charleston started paving the streets and assessing the owners of these properties for the pavement along there. And many of these private burial society, there are 2 Jewish graveyards on Hanover Street that were lost at that time period. what the college is subsequently built on, Addlestone Library, the Brown Fellowship Society Cemetery on Pitt Street was lost at that time through city assessment, and there being no successor organization paying for that. And then I think it sheeted to the city, and then the city sold them at public sale.
Other questions? So, what I think, how we're going to proceed,
And your meetings are so much more interesting than ours, so.
Excuse me. Mics, please.
I'm sorry, I comment about the fact that the History Commission had a budget, because we got a budget. They no longer have a budget. All right, and I just comment that we're going through budget season. Actually, the budget, ad hoc budget committee started meeting last week. So the notion of the good work that you do, when you're created, there may be resources available, but in order to do this work, it takes expertise and like I appreciate Adrian sharing the documents in her report. But this is, you guys are all volunteers as we are, as I am, not necessarily expert in archaeology, all right, engineering and or construction, or historic preservation. So it's important that we work collaboratively with the experts that are on the History Commission, and I look forward. Thank you very much, Harlan, for being here. Okay, are you ready? You're not ready yet, okay. So a couple other items to raise. Actually, are you ready for your co-chair's comments?
I don't really have anything to to add other than like, you know, what we've prepared to talk about, I guess, on old business.
Okay, okay. Good then. So manager's update.
Thank you, Jerry. The manager's update was sent over and it's basically speaking to what we've previously had discussions over. I did incorporate for those who wanted to support the collective citizen group, which is Protect and Respect the Bodies. There, I included their email address. If you wanted to send over letters of support, they also have a website that I included as well. I attended the History Commission meeting along with co-chair Jerry. And after that meeting, I did speak to the clerk's office because I wasn't sure if there would be an appetite to have a joint meeting of the History Commission and HARC as far as formulating the recommendations as a collective whole. But with previous discussion, I believe that we're going to do a resolution, they will, and then we'll do one together. But that's just something that I took the opportunity to see if that was something we would be able to do. Also, with the grant opportunity, I sent that over about the historic Black churches. Our city grant team is willing to support this initiative. So if you do know of a church, the closing date for that grant is September 12th. And also, as spoken earlier, the ordinance revision. We know that we got deferred in May, so in September, go back in front of the Community Development Committee. That concludes the report.
All right. Questions to the manager?
Maybe you know better, co-chairs, but what will take place during that Community Development Committee in September?
I don't, I think the questions that Councilman Gregory raised, may be, addressed by legal. No, I'm not aware. Have you been asked for any additional comment?
My, my guess is, and this is with, absolute compliments to the folks on that committee, which is by far the busiest and most important committee that we have, in the city in terms of, sort of guiding our future development, I think, is that they do not like to take action quickly. That's probably with good reason. And so if I had to guess, they will receive information and then take it up at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, thank you. I guess I was just asking, what do we have to do in order to be ready to be in front of the CD committee in September? Do we have new
I think,
information to prepare?
I think staff will present and then they'll tell us what they want to hear. So they'll have some preliminary discussion and then say, we want to hear X, Y, Z.
You may recall that, we previously submitted some recommendations in language, some of which, generated the questions for Councilman Gregory, how, the city staff has responded to that. I think, we'll have the opportunity to comment back on their comments to our comments. I think that's how that process is going to work.
Okay, well, I for one would like to get all of that back refreshed in front of us if that would be.
I will
handled.
email that
Thank
over.
you. I don't remember seeing Councilmember Gregory's questions, for example.
Okay. Other comments, questions, manager's report? If not, going on to old business, we listed a number of items that we have been talking about and wanted to make sure that we didn't lose the dynamic. If there are no comments or updates, we'll just carry forward. So, okay.
All right, so I have sort of a unique position in that I am on the board of I honestly don't know what we call it. So there's so many names floating around, but like the Hope Center Inc. It's a nonprofit that will eventually, at least as originally designed, administer the services at the Hope Center. When it was formed, the thought was that would be in a building combined with some affordable housing on Cunnington Avenue. That changed to the vision that we've sort of talked about more here, I think, which is where the Hope Center would be on the same sort of like corner of the property as the Rapid Shelter program for homeless folks. And it would still be administered maybe by details are up in the air. Anyway, so I sort of see this from two perspectives. And the reality of the situation is like, we just need the buy-in. So I think the intention of the city is to go forward with a Hope Center somewhere. The Cunnington Avenue idea is still available. But I do think that combining it with the Rapid Shelter program would be fantastic. And you can kind of combine you can gain some efficiencies in construction, so save some money by building all that stuff together. So we are still going around, I believe the mayor's office is still going around to the county and other municipalities. And I think that idea has sort of been re-extended to them with the hope that they will engage with it a little bit more because it's a good idea. I know that there's a lot of ways that we can address this issue, and with an unlimited amount of money, we would like to do a lot more. But with the money that's available, I think this is a great program, and the reality is it's not going to happen without buy-in from other counties because the counties and municipalities because we just can't afford it. So the I mean, I see unhoused / rapid housing, and I include in that the Hope Center, because those services are, housing is only going to get somebody so far. I mean, they're going to need more things. And, having that clearinghouse is going to be a great thing. I'm a little bit interested to see what will happen because the library is closing down for renovations, and I think they're pretty extensive renovations. So I'm not exactly sure how long that's going to take, but an uncomfortable amount of time when the facilities like that provide shelter during the day from extreme heat. The limited amount of extreme cold that we get. So we're entering a period where, I frankly think that the homelessness issue will be sort of more in front of people than it typically is. With a recognition that people are probably suffering more than they have when they have more places to go to during the day. So, this is an issue that's got to be resolved, and I'm really happy to see the city taking leadership, even though it is, this process is dragging, but it's a big undertaking. And so, getting that buy-in from everybody is critical, and I hope we get there. So if you have contacts with the county or with the city or with the other cities, let them know, like, encourage them. I mean, this is a great thing. If we all are in this together, it's affordable, it's available, we should move forward. As far as youth initiatives, so a lot of thought going into this, and we have great people at the city working on it, I think. And so, more to come. My understanding is that well, I don't know. We'll see what happens with the curfew ordinance, whether, the police department has told us that they will report back. I think there was a media article.
Yeah, there's an article on News 2 on July 31st indicating the ordinance went into effect June 27th, that there had been 12 incidents of interaction, but only one citation issued. And that citation was issued connected to a violation of another law. All right. So for at least the first month period, it didn't seem that there's a lot of activity.
And that's great. I mean, and I can tell you that, I ended up voting for that ordinance at council, with the belief that, yeah, I mean, they, not going out looking for confrontations or, certainly not taking somebody up to Leeds Avenue. So hopefully that is indicative of a lot more resolved with like a conversation, calling a parent if it, got clearly in 11 of those cases, they probably called the parents and said like, hey, come grab them. And, one citation that if it's accompanied by another, violation of the law, that's exactly what thought we were voting on. So that's, I'm very encouraged to hear that. And I hope it's having, the desired effect of, really just creating less of a crowd that's not, moving kind of from place to place and is just, gathering there looking for, what's inevitably gonna boil over in a district like Upper King Street. And then affordable housing.
Before you, Adrian, I recall that the Recreation Department was going to provide you some sense of what range of activities that they were doing. We heard from Mindy, and we talked to the folks in the art area. And I raise that because it might be helpful and to have that information, particularly as the budget begins to crank along, to see what's in the departmental budgets as it relates to recreation and youth services, what they're asking for. You get to see that in September all right? What you see in October and November is what the city thinks it can fund. And as we made observations last time around, the question of, the Small Business Resource Conference, with some success in terms of making certain that was supported, we might want to take the same kind of look as relates to this budget cycle in this particular area.
Can I ask a follow-up question too? Do you know if the Youth Advisory Committee has met yet since the curfew went into effect? I understood that that was going to be more of a revitalized body of students.
I'm just gonna tell you that I don't know what that body is. So I don't know the answer to that, but
Okay.
you've given me a new thing to.
Yeah, I
look
mean, I
into.
think, at the start of the school year, obviously, this should be the time that they feel
So perhaps,
empowered.
Adrian, if you could check in terms of what the schedule is, for the meeting of the body and share that, and see if there's an opportunity for us to listen in, to the meetings to see what's on their agenda. That would be probably helpful. Thanks, Carol, for that.
Yeah, and then going back to your, the Rapid Housing and Hope Center update. So I know that the mayor is, and whoever else is, he's inviting from the city, is going on the road show again to encourage the other, local governments to be contributing their share to the more permanent solution for all of these. But aren't most of those governments on a summer to July 1 to June 30 fiscal year? So are we asking them to take it up for their next fiscal year? And then we're going to set the stage by having something in our budget that says, here's our foot in the sand.
So this would, from my understanding, this would be paid for with funds like from the city's side, and I may be wrong about this, with funds from the same, like working on the same site as the public ops building.
I'm sorry, is the what?
As the public ops building. or-
Right. Well, it's, yeah, I mean, we've seen the layout, unless they're going to change that. It was, it's part of that master land mass that,
Yeah, but I mean, this is forward looking. I mean, for sure. I mean, this is, it's, even if all the other ones bought in today, I mean, doesn't, it would be time before we're ready to put something there, because it's going to be wrapped up with the construction of the rest of the facility, which is going to happen over the next few years.
I guess what I'm asking, Stephen, is if the city is, going to be the biggest contributor and basically the manager of the game plan as both, but this facility itself is constructed, I think they're still going to plan to use the little, what do you call them? Not trailers. I shouldn't say that word. Whatever they're called.
The rapid
They're
housing.
cute. I've been in one. They're very cute. So if the city is basically taking the lead on that and putting in the most money, do you feel like the council is going to be asked to do their share of that budget for this coming fiscal year of 27? Because as far as I know, we're the only locality that has a calendar year as our fiscal year. So we're always 6 months out of sync. Do you have any understanding of that yet?
Yeah, I think the answer is nobody really does, because it's a moving part, right? If everybody bought in, then I think I would expect that, the mayor's office would come back with a plan that says, here's how we fund this year.
Okay.
And it's not like we have to fund the entire operation of the thing in 1 year. So
No, but you have to fund the
sure.
site, the build out and all of that. So that's a big capital outlay.
Yeah, well,
I mean, we saw the numbers at the beginning. I'm sure they've adjusted some, but in terms of the construction of the site compared to ongoing operations, that was delineated by, Mr. McVeigh when he was giving his report. So I'm just curious in terms of timing and reality. And meanwhile, people are out on the streets, and the federal government is, empowering local governments to take more serious actions against them in
So-
the name of enforcement.
So I understood from listening to the Budget Advisory Committee that the question of capital projects and bond issues were part of that discussion. So maybe some of the answer will come out of that process. Okay.
Yeah, so that was my, and I have to go double check, but I think that the money for that would be coming from the same borrowing capacity as the remainder of that property. But I'd have to double check that. And there has been some private fundraising as well for this issue. So I'm not exactly sure, even after our board meeting the other day, how much is in any of those accounts. But there is some private fundraising set aside for that kind of stuff.
Okay. Carol?
Yeah, Stephen, back to the unhoused rapid housing topic. Is there, has there been any discussion about a potential mental health component of, of what we're looking at doing? And if so, any thoughts you might have about, how you see that going?
Yeah, so there is a real challenge there, but folks are getting connected with services. The question is like follow up after that, because the people that come to do that to provide that service are the DMH, Charleston Mental Health, but that facility is out on Charlie Hall Boulevard in outer West Ashley. So if you're somebody who has lived downtown, whether, you have steady housing or you have, sort of off and on housing, or you don't have housing at all, getting out there is really a challenge. And so pretty frequently people are getting connected with services and then like not following up with that. And so falling back in the same situation they were in, which is it's a difficult problem without a more robust transportation system. And so it's, as much as I hate to say this, is not immediately solvable. There are great, if somebody's willing, there are like longer acting, if there are issues needing meds, there are longer acting meds that they can choose to take, and that are certainly available. Not everybody does that, and so there's plenty of challenges there, but there's great success in getting people initially connected with the services. And that's the whole idea of having the Hope Center right there with the housing. And actually in the library renovation, I meant to say earlier, they're creating more space for these services. So like the United Way will have an office, and the Charleston Mental Health will have an office, and I'm sure there's a social worker there to do it. Oh, great. Okay.
You good?
Yeah. Oh, and then on the affordable housing front, a lot of potential and a lot of things up in the air. You may have seen some media reports about sort of back and forth between the county and the city about purchasing the county property on Morrison. I think it's 930 Morrison, maybe. I can't remember, but it's a lot of property. And as much as I love my friends at the county, and they know that. I wish we weren't having this back and forth with public money. I really kind of wish that we could all cooperate a little bit better, but we'll get there. We'll get there, and we'll figure out the purchase of this property. I really hope, and that we can use it to really create a lot of affordable housing. So really great opportunities that weren't there, even in a concrete way, maybe, a year ago. So I think we're making good progress towards, making a significant dent in the issue that we have.
I have two things to report from the Housing Authority. I just came from there. Sorry, that's why I was a little late. So yesterday, the Housing Authority took its 275 Hugie new construction development to the Board of Architectural Review and received a preliminary approval of the design with comments and conditions by the staff, but none of them are unachievable. And it did seem like, compared to the earliest meetings that the BAR was reviewing the change of design that required the project to go to the BAR, there's been a turn of, I think, not just cooperation, but engagement. You can tell when the BAR members, you know, are really invested in the outcome of a project. They start to give really good suggestions, and, you know, they're all architects, they're all creative, so I don't catch half their lingo, but to a person at the meeting last night, they were each contributing their own synergistic suggestions. So basically the architect goes off and makes those changes, and then we'll come back for final approval. And I think the Housing Authority is very hopeful that we'll get a final approval. We're also on the way to hiring a general contractor. So hopefully that project that was delivered in terms of concept back in 2019 before COVID, I think we'll finally see the light of day. Hopefully we'll have a ribbon cutting in the next, or a groundbreaking in the next year, within the next year. And then the other good news is there's a whole, the mayor is coming to the Housing Authority's commission meeting Monday night and providing the commissioners in the audience a look at the city's housing plan for increasing the inventory. Another 7,000 units of a range of affordability are needed by 2030, according to the Bloomberg study that was produced for the city. And so he'll be delivering his version of that. And I think that we've developed a good pattern of understanding. There's just that unique construct of what a housing authority actually is and does on behalf of the contract that it has with HUD, that is sort of difficult for some of the city and the consultants, outside consultants in particular, to really appreciate the differences. Because at one end of the spectrum, it looks like it's just new development. We all know how to do that, right? If you're in the private development sector, but you don't understand it from the constraints that HUD and for example, the whole rental assistance program puts on the extra layers of, you know, red tape and bureaucracy and following all the regulations. So it's been an interesting iteration of watching those two potential partners come together.
So is the meeting on Monday YouTube taped, streamed, or do you have to show up if you want to be? And where is that meeting?
We've moved it to a bigger, I didn't open my agenda today. Did you, Alvin? It's still on the same.
Yeah,
property,
it still says that it's at 550 Meeting Street.
But they have like
housing.
a maintenance shop that has a big room, and that's what they're moving it to. So there'll be somebody there to direct.
So Adrian, if you could,
550 Meeting Street. If you come to that building, then of course there'll be someone there to basically give you
Yeah.
directions to get to the meeting. And that's at 5:30 p.m.
So
on
5:30 Monday.
Monday.
Mhm.
Yes.
okay. All right. Unless there's anything burning on Union Pier bar amendments or the water plan from any commissioners, while we hold those over for discussion in the future. So we have time for open discussion. Are there any items that any commissioners would like to raise in open discussion?
Just wanted to congratulate Adrienne on her award from the YWCA.
Here, here.
Very proud.
When did we hear about that? I didn't hear about that. Was that in your manager's report?
Absolutely not.
It is. It is the Community Eliminating Racism honor, right?
Yes, so the YWCA, they have a programming that is What Women Bring,
Yeah. I've done it every year.
2025, yes.
I'll be in the audience.
Yes, and so I was nominated and selected for the category of community eliminating racism. Thank you, Brandon.
Good for you. Bravo.
Okay. Any other open comments, concerns? So, Tom is pushing for us to, reconvene a conversation about the unhoused, generally, and trying to line up those individuals. He also, has been talking about, as we think about this youth question, Shreya, you raised the Youth Advisory Committee, the possibility of us finding other places where young people are meeting and going and listening to them as opposed to asking them to come and talk with us. So there's talking and discussion about how we do that. And if any of the commissioners are aware of locations or sites or discussions are being held. Mindy mentioned in her comments that the mental health issue was something that young people were concerned about. And her suggestion, and I'm anxious to see whether or not it's in her budget or not, was a kind of a youth mental health something. It might be convenient or expeditious to think about who are the organizations who have resources and interest in that area. See if maybe we need to follow up with her to see if she's got a plan or an idea around that, so that we might be able to move that forward. Carol?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I didn't know that the United Way has sort of been reconfigured, and they have a new CEO and a new program director, I think it is. Anyway, I heard them represent themselves at a housing authority session for residents a couple of 3 weeks ago, and they have a whole new interest in being involved like they used to be as a true ongoing drop-in type resource. So that's why they're setting up their facility. They have a permanent office location at the main library, and they're going to staff it. I think they're starting out on a half-a-day schedule. I don't know, but the library has their schedule, and they are very concerned about kids in particular. Mental health has always been one of their sort of go-to, helping services. So I think we could lay that on their doorstep and see what they might be
I just
willing
wanna
to take on.
make a suggestion for the record that we reach out to We Are Family, who provides a lot of direct services to young LGBTQ people. And I know that there are a disproportionate number of LGBTQ homeless young people and that are dealing with mental health issues as well. And so I know they host a lot of discussions for young people. So they might be a good resource.
And they have a walk-in place too.
They have a
They
new
have
brand new
bathroom.
center.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, great. Other observations, comments? If not, going to change a motion to adjourn. Undebatable. We're done. Thank you, everyone.